Um, okay. On the agenda for today, we'll talk about our work plan. We'll take a review of our next actions list, which is growing. And we want to continue with our strategy to get our work streams coordinated and so forth. So let me jump into this real quick, make sure everything's going. Hey, I'm getting some background noise. If somebody's working, if you could mute, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay. So first I wanted to give everybody a SISE update. We've been working on the technology, on the portal, the App Store, so forth for years. It was in beta, Rev 1, now it's 2.0. It's really ready to go. So I wanted to give you all a quick update on where that is. This will be the central landing spot for everyone that logs into the SISE, and from here they will go anywhere within the SISE protected area level 1, right? So this will get them access to level 1 data, level 1 use cases, and all level 1 means is they've been vetted, but they're not level 2, which is going to require a separate agreement with penalties, and level 3 will have a PIV card, a separate agreement with penalty. We're not at that level yet, but everyone will be vetted, will come in through here. We've made some significant updates. We've redesigned, per input from you all, the lobby page, which is we call kind of when you log in, you land on it here. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'll pull it up right now on the web. Up here in the upper left corner is the home page. So you can see if you're on the webinar, we've kept it very simple. It'll be laid out in simple blocks. It's mobile friendly, and from here they can go to anywhere. There will be the App Store will be a component, a secure chat which we can divide and subdivide as we need by topic or whatever. That'll be available through here. We'll have operational alerts, and this is very exciting what we're doing with operational alerts. So right now we use operational alerts with email, and you guys get a bunch of them from me. Well, the idea what we want to do in 2020 is we want to create a bot that will capture the data from the approved sources, create the summary, put it in there with a link so you can come to one place within the SISE, and if North Carolina and Florida and South Carolina have all issued guidance, it'll all be right there the moment they issue it. It'll happen really almost instantly, instead of me getting it, forwarding it out, or somebody else getting it. And you ever get 5 copies of the same email being forwarded? So this is going to end that, and we're very excited about it. We're testing it now in Pennsylvania. It's working very, very well. We'll have premium media and products like that might be provided by third party. Professional training we hope to get into, like Carrie, your course that you did, the little executive overview. We want to expound on that if we can, and build maybe a course behind that over time. And then we'll have a support function for people having questions about the SISE. So that's the any questions on the landing page and the navigation? We wanted to have it done today, but it didn't work out for today. So we basically have also updated the navigation to reflect these components which weren't there last time. We've also updated the search capability, and we're also grouping all of these products by a number of different categories. You need something for ORL ranking. We've got products ranked by ORL, disaster response, solutions category. So this will all be customized to make it more user friendly, and then we'll have a premium area as well. We have added good morning, Will. We've added upper left corner, we've added a add to favorites capability for when people come to every product. Will have a product page that has a video, use case. We're going to add cost justification in here. If we have products that have events with every storm, we'll have a history of those events, and then they can add this to their favorites list, so they can, every time they come in, they can navigate more quickly, right? So just wanted to give you all an update to that. Any questions? Okay. What's our business model is going to look like this for 2020. We've tested a number of different approaches, but Currently in 2020, we're going to go to market with this approach. You all on the working group will be grandfathered in. But for new folks coming in, we'll have a setup. We'll have a month to month, which will cost about $300 a month if people want to try it out. We'll have a 6-month offer for about $1,000, and we'll have a 12-month subscription for $100 a month or $1,200, right? We are spending a lot of time on cost justification. Like people will ask, well, what do I get for my money? Well, our hope is when they use some of these products, and we've done some of the math on them already, the first time they use it, they're going to save at least 10 times that, at least 10 times this, right? And we'll build models that will justify that. Our whole forecast was to have the cost for the service be made back the first time they use one of our dashboards, the first time they use the data sets that answer their questions. And it's going to be a fun part of it is the cost justification piece. Any questions on the model? I'm just going to go down the list and get some feedback. So Dale, I'll start with you and just work down the list. Dale, any comments or feedback?
No, looks good. Good job.
Okay. Let's see, George Eason, any comments or feedback, questions?
No, I agree. Real good. Well thought out.
Okay, great, thank you. Mark Sikorsky?
Yep, no comments.
Okay. Shad Hedrick?
No comments, Tom. I like where it's going.
Okay, very good. Anyone else that I missed want to comment? Okay, let me go to the timeline. So we're making the updates now in January. We'll do a soft launch to you all and probably do maybe a feedback session or two so we can have it tweaked. Soft launch will be about 50 users. Then we'll go to phase 2 launch in February, which will be about 200 users for additional feedback and kind of burping the baby. And then in March we go full launch to our 15,000 subscribers. We will also do the Endeavor launch. Endeavor is a Pennsylvania-focused SISE work group run by the private sector. Pat Scholl is the chair, and we're going to do a launch just to that group, which is really very Pennsylvania-centric, but it really is going to support building the Pennsylvania private sector program. Then we hope to take that to North Carolina and Florida and other states that want to do that. The idea behind that is to support the states, bring their data into the SISE, but also provide them data they could not normally get on their own, either from, based on use case, either from federal government, private sector, or both. So that's our timeline for the rollout here. So we've been at this for a couple of years. So we're very happy to see this baby get born, and then we can move down the road on our initiatives. Next up is our annual meeting. It is June 14 through 16. This year we're combining our Fleet Work Group annual meeting with our SISE work groups, our committees, and so forth, along with our partners from DHS, FEMA, DOT, DOE. The idea is to create an annual resilience summit, okay? And we've got a couple of mock-up pictures you can take a look at. I did email all this out. If you didn't get a copy, put a note in the chat for the webinar and I'll send it to you. The idea is to have an annual gathering that we can come together and brief, teach, and showcase some of the results of the use cases and the committees that are working together in hopes to attract more partners and committee members as we continue to expand, but more importantly, solve the problems that we know need to be worked on. So anyway, I won't show you all these, but we got a couple of, for those of you on the webinar, we've got a couple of versions of the language and the graphics and so forth. But the idea is we want this to be professional. We want it to be done simple. So I sent the graphics out. If you have a preference, let me know. But we're going to try to finalize this today and get out the dates now. And Greg and I were just talking about on the 9 o'clock call, kind of a lead up to this. How do we educate registrants 3 months before they come, and so that when they arrive, they have an idea of what they're coming to see. A lot of folks will be brand new to this, so we want to make sure we educate them prior to the event, so that it doesn't fall on the event to do all the education. Okay. I wanted now to go to the session discussions very quick. we have a number of areas that we're working on. We won't have all these, we just kind of put them on a list here, but I wanted, for this group, I wanted to focus on the SISE discussion. We talked about this last week, but what the takeaway was from last week was, Dale, I think you mentioned it, maybe organizing either a panel or a couple of briefs and so forth, but the suggestion was provide some, 101, like what is an ORL, what's the purpose of this group, what's the mission and so forth. The next discussion was, what are some of the results, maybe demonstrate the ORL ranking tool, some of the dashboards. And then the third one was have a panel. I think, Dale, this was your idea, have a panel on, from a utility perspective at a minimum, the use of ORLs, what data is there currently and what data is missing. Maybe gather some input on that. Dale, did I get that right? I want to make sure I...
Yeah, I don't know that I was the brain source for all of that, but yeah, we talked about the history of SISE and ROL, a demo or two, and then move into a panel discussion so folks can do a Q&A. Yep.
I left off history of SISE. Very good. And Dale, I've had so many versions of that. The one you and I talked about was how it started in 2015, right? Or did we go back all the way back to? Did we go all the way back to Hurricane Sandy? I don't.
Well, the Sandy is, that's a good part of it. I mean, we can make it concise, but that's
Okay.
real helpful.
Okay. No, I couldn't remember how far back I went, but that Sandy story is an interesting story, a true story. But I think we can capture that because if it put a light bulb on in your head, I think it will do the same for others, and it's certainly a good example of setting the stage. So that's a good idea. Excellent. Okay. Okay. So what I want to do, Carrie, I sent a text, Carrie, to you to talk about kind of how, for people coming in, the flow of how we'd like to see folks get educated. So maybe, Carrie, if you have some thoughts about the order of what we cover first, that would be helpful in our planning. Any thoughts about how you'd like to structure the information from the committee?
As far as the education component,
Yeah, what I'm wrestling with is, all right, we got a room full of people there. They're signed up to get to find out what is this work group up to. And, I'm struggling with what to talk about first, second, third, fourth, but if you have some thoughts, I certainly want the working group to make that decision, not me.
yeah, I may want to think about it a little bit, but I think starting off with, anyway, my approach has been to kind of start off with the story that kind of drives home the whole point of the work group, and then we can go into kind of the background and then dive into the ORL model itself. And then, are we wanting this to be like a training on the model or just an overview?
That's a great question, Carrie. I'm going to leave it up to you all. This could be multiple sessions. It doesn't have to be one session, right? This is a track. So we've got plenty of time. And so we can break this into smaller sessions, but I think we've covered the macro, kind of what we want to cover across the days we're together. So I'm not married to any specific format, but I wanted you all to discuss it. What would be the best way to communicate these bullet points?
Yeah, I think approaching it like a training might be a good idea because we want to start doing that more. And so we can kind of, start developing the training curriculum, so to speak, for this group and then, kind of develop it more as we go along. But that's one of the big next steps for us, right, is the education and training component. So that's my thought.
Yeah. And to that point, we are going to have somebody going to videotape this whole thing. So we can, in other words, this will help us create our training. So we can maybe kill two birds with one stone, but I figure if we're going to take the time and energy to plan it and organize it, it'd be great to capture it. So we're going to have somebody there to videotape.
In that case, I mean, we might as well do it like a training, because then if they're videotaping it, then we've got our training curriculum just right there.
Exactly.
Feed two birds with one bird feeder.
Okay, I've updated my, for those of you on the webinar, I've updated my slides here into 4 sessions. Let me just go round the horn here and get some feedback. Chris, I'll start with you. Chris McIntosh. Chris, you still with us? There you go.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm processing.
Okay. So if we look at session 1, that's where we want to get the history out there, right? And so far I have history of the SISE, right? For that matter,
so
okay, and then the story of how the SISE working group came about, I think, is the second piece.
so one thing, if the audience is the uninitiated, I've used this technique before. Sometimes it's better to show the end state and then back into how you got there, so you get the interest. Because so just a thought, and this is for discussion. We do what session 3 before session 2. So everybody gets the gee whiz, wow, that's cool, and then we get into, all right, this is what it takes to actually do that.
All right.
It's just an idea.
So something like this. Hang on.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Like this?
Yeah, I concur there. Definitely.
Okay. So let me ask a question, Chris. Session 1, brand new people are sitting down. Are you I kind of like. Are you suggesting the first thing we talk about is where is this going? Why are you here? Right? Something like that before we get into the history.
Well, the why you're here is the problem statement,
Right.
and we really hammer the problem statement of why the ORLs came about and why the sites came about. So we really hit on to why do you need something like the sites to facilitate the information sharing between these stakeholders, and we can use examples like Sandy where that didn't work so well, and go and you know, all of us here have probably anecdotes about why we need to get better at that. And also the ORLs, why do they become important? You know, we have Carrie's Gas Buddy. We have, I have examples from watch centers where people didn't know what they were looking at. But we really lay out in depth why this is important.
Okay.
We also can talk about people aren't using their tools to anywhere near their potential because they don't know what data to put into them. I mean, there's a whole lot. We could do a whole thing on that. And then we show the aspirational end state and things that we've built and are building in session 2. And then we get into, all right, now it's time to roll up your sleeves and understand the hard work that it takes to do this.
Yeah.
That's just my 2 cents.
Okay.
I'd love to hear other people's opinions on that.
So just to summarize.
I just add to that
Go ahead.
you could build off of everything that we've already done. And look, they've got a huge head start if they join in the efforts. That's a great point. And the other thing we don't talk about, to build on Greg's point, is that one of the biggest things that we have done is build a community of people across multiple domains so they get to work with. Which is, in my opinion, the biggest value proposition of the SISE.
Okay. Very good. So if session.
And you've been doing that for 10 years, Tom. That's why we're here now.
So if
Because of the community and
so
an
So if session 1 is why is this important, session 2 then would be what we've done. I'm looking at the macro themes, right? Session 3, I think, is where we get into the ORL. Okay, we can touch on it up top, but I think people really need to understand how it works. Like, am I hearing that right? Like, we show them we show them Kerry's chart. The technical, conceptual explanation of. Is that what you're thinking?
Exactly.
Okay.
This is the work.
Okay.
Hey, Thomas Moore. Just the question I have. I agree with the whole conversation in my head, and maybe I'm just thinking of it wrong. But we would do a demonstration on the ORL tools before we talk about what an ORL is. I always feel like
Not on the tools. Not on the tools. I'm thinking a demonstration more on the end results of dashboards, web applications, using ORL data.
Gotcha.
All right. So maybe Mark.
That's a good pickup.
Yeah, Mark. Maybe we just say demonstration to show the end results. People like to get to the point. I love that, Mark. I think you're right.
Yep.
We got to show them as soon as we can. We got to show them something visual that says, "Wow, now what is that?" And then they understand it. And then the story makes sense, right? If we just launch, if we just launch into the story, which I tend to do, by the way, people they can't catch up. So great suggestion. Great suggestion. Okay. So session 3, how it works. So that's how the ORL works. What else do we want to have in session 3? What do you all envision there?
Hey Tom, this is Dave. One of the ideas, I'm not sure if it's in this session or maybe the next session. You know, we should probably work together with 2 or 3 computers that just show different maybe operational environments, so people can really understand. Here's the importance of dashboards. Here's the importance of sharing the information. And here's the importance of engaging in real-time collaboration when those times are critical. Things like that.
Okay, good idea. So what could we do then if we'll have internet there? Are you suggesting just kind of a live, one of the key things here is synchronizing people, right? So this might be an interesting opportunity for us to show how does this work group help synchronize people on the same information that's been vetted and reliable, right? That speaks to the ORL one, spreadsheet. That speaks to GeoCollaborate. That speaks to the dashboards. I think what I hear you saying, Dave, is to have multiple PCs or have people use their PCs to follow along with us, something like that. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just envisioning, little signs over each computer that says, "Oh, this is DHS SISE. This is a private sector company. This is the SISE." And so watch how this information can be shared with that one. Or, I'm not exactly sure what session that would be the best in, but just something where it really kind of pulls it together and makes it real for everybody.
Hey, Tom, can I make a brief suggestion?
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead, Dave.
All of this stuff is really, the way I've always approached it is, this is all the background information that helps you solve your use cases, right?
Yeah.
So, shouldn't you, with how it works, isn't it, it's like walking into a tool shop with a zillion tools, but the use case I'm trying to solve, I need these 3 tools. So, rather than spending all day on the myriad, tons and tons of data that's there, pick the use case and show them all these tools. Here's how you can grab these 3 tools this quickly, the dashboards, and it should be supporting their use cases. That's how you solve the problem.
Great point. Okay, so maybe zero in on a couple of use cases and let the tool show a decision maker that here's how we get to decision quickly. Great suggestion. Okay. Where would we stick the? I would love to have Dominion demonstrate the current version, assuming it doesn't get enhanced, of the ORL ranking tool. I think that's going to be a really important piece. Where would we stick that?
That goes in session 3, I think.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay, and then session 4, I think goes back to the panel, and I think probably the panel today. My thinking is, Carrie, if you and Dale, Duke and Dominion were there, maybe Greg, if you were there from a federal perspective, and if we can get North Carolina there, I think we'll have a state, commercial, and federal perspective on this. Would be very helpful. Dale, let me ask you this, Dale. Are you able to attend June 14 through 16 in Baltimore?
We're making plans for it.
Okay, I just want to make sure we gave you all enough notice and so forth. So we could drill into this a little bit more, but I think this is a good discussion, because to me this will be Dave Vanderboom, and I think you're right. It's the use cases that are going to tell the best story, right? Here's the problem. Here's how this solves the problem. I think if I heard you right.
Yeah, I think that'll also help give you some information for your, I think how to close that. Like you say, where are we going? Probably ought to be how you close, open and close, but where are we going? What use cases are next? Because I think you just cracked the egg. I think there's a lot of stuff that's still out there that needs to be solved.
Okay, I'm just making some notes. Great. Okay. Okay. Any other comments on topics? I think we've covered, at least this work group, we've covered a lot of the components here. Any other input as far as the sessions go?
Hey, Tom, this is Greg. I do like everything that we've talked about, and I couldn't harp on more on kind of the different perspectives of how we're doing this. And, if I'm going to, harp on anything, it's going to be just the data framework alone. And even if there's a visual of how we're even setting up the SISE, with that GeoHub capability. I mean, these are all things that we're very much talking about in our own data task force. So if you get some other really kind of data junkies out there, they're going to want to talk about those things. And again, some of it's just keep it in your back pocket if you need it. But these are things that we're definitely going to mirror, and they're all being talked about at the data framework or task force that I'm on, as well as some of our systems calls. And, whether it's cloud-based, how we share information, how do we catalog it, and who's the data owner, and how we, actually share it, and, the federated agreements. Those are all things I think we've kind of talked about before, but I think have that in our back pocket if we want to harp on, like, why are we doing it this way if we get any of those types of questions. And because we are ahead of the curve on a lot of this stuff. We are far ahead of, DHS. So use, how are you connecting all these different data sets, and what tools are you using to do that? Because if there's easier and better ways to do it, we're going to leverage that. And if people can catch wind of some of the things that we're doing, I think they're going to want to hear more.
Okay, that might be a separate session, but I like that idea because we've got SISEnet happening. We've got the DHS SISE integration, which is already happening. You said data architecture, right? So this is really speaking to the technology component of this, right? Got it. Okay. And then we talk about how we
want to do a whole session
on what?
this.
Oh,
You got
okay.
a glimpse at it. It is a little different. It's really powerful, but it's a little different workflow.
Okay. So that might be for the technical people. I think they would love that. That could almost be a standalone session we do, right?
Like a breakout.
Yeah, I'm thinking exactly. I'm thinking that could be a separate. Well, these could all be breakouts, back to back, or they could be separate. I mean, we got 2 days to spread across, basically 2 half days and a full day. We got time to do it. And to me, this is important information. To video and capture, right? Because this becomes our training. So if we have a few people in the room, great. If we don't, doesn't matter. We can capture this. And to me, this is the technology part is a really important piece. I know as you get into it, people want to know this, and the technical people want to be involved in it. So great point. Great point. So my next question is, have we got enough in here for operational decision makers? Is my first question. Dave Vanderblomen comments, is there enough here for the operational decision makers as well as our technical guys, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think you got, as long as you fill out all that with meat in between there, I think you got plenty.
Okay. And we may not have time for all of it, but this, back to Carrie's point, this is kind of our training outline. I'm really going to try to make a time because this work group is really central to this whole effort. And do we have enough in here for our GIS folks? Dale?
Hey, Tom.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is Dave. I got to drop off going into a meeting, but I just wanted to mention before I get off, maybe explaining, and this might be done in one of the earlier sessions, or maybe it's a separate one, explaining the framework that gets established, or the data sharing and information networks like SISEnet that are being established, opens the doors for more federal government data consuming and feedback into those federal agencies. So if we can deliver the message that participation in the SISE also means feedback of the products back to the agencies, will add another level of value. And, I might even argue might lead to additional funding for us from agencies to put their data through these evaluation paths, stuff like that.
Right. Dave, thank you, Dave. I made a note after the ESIP conference that we need to create a webinar aimed at those federal feedback customers, right? Because it's too important a topic to bundle in with too many things, right? So I made a note of that. I'll circle back with that later, but I definitely think that's a message we need to deliver one-on-one to NOAA and NASA and DOT and, USGS, because it's a critical part of their operation. It's a great way for us, I think, to get data from them and operationalize it. Thank you. I think it's a great point. Hey, Dale, do we have enough in here for us to make outreach and invite some of the GIS committees and councils that you're part of? You mentioned when we were together in January earlier.
if we, I don't see the panel. Well, there it is. The panel and utility perspective. So I think everything's there.
Okay. So I just want to make sure you, as we do this, we want to invite all of our partners we can and have them come and get something out of it. I want to make sure there's enough meat on the bone. So if that works.
Yeah, the only other item that's not listed here will be the data concern. Certainly the utilities want to consume it, but data coming back the other direction, maybe what that dynamic looks like. It doesn't need to be included, but it is a reality. Based on the comments that were just made, we don't want to paint a false impression that the SISE is going to provide a two-way street of all data. The utilities are going to send data out and we're going to consume data in. I know that sounds like a broken record, but that is the reality.
So that would be, how is data protected? And what's the question?
Well, data protection is fine. It's just that most of the utilities that commented on one of our calls that there, at least right now, is no avenue, SISE or not, that utilities are comfortable with, at least today, on releasing utility information.
So the question really is, how is my data protected? Right? I'm trying to get in the head. I'm trying to get in the head and ask the question. You're right on the money. How is my
Well, maybe it's just the current state of the electric utility industry is there isn't just to let everybody know that there's not a form or a protection schema that's set up right now where utilities are in a position to share distribution infrastructure, transmission infrastructure, substation infrastructure, fiber infrastructure. I don't want to speak for every utility that's out there because some have been forced by mandates to make some of that viewable, but by and large, within the large utility consortium on the transmission side and the distribution side, utilities don't make that available as a data set. So by way of example, if a utility is going to respond to within our service territory, everybody is challenged with how do we get our infrastructure into their hands. And so we've talked about things like data encryption, and there's a lot of comments a lot of conversation that's going about how to make something viewable by way of distribution or transmission or substation infrastructure on a non-company owned device. And so you get into data encryption and other discussions, but I didn't want to give anybody that might be attending this saying, oh, this is we've got utilities involved in this. It looks like it's going to be a exchange of information back and forth. This is going to be wonderful. And then the federal government says, man, I'm going to be able to get maybe what I've been asking for a long time.
So
I think, Dale, you bring up a great point.
Yeah.
And maybe what we actually do is have a facilitated conversation about why do you want utility data if you're not utility? Because a lot of folks they have this amorphous idea that they want utility information, but really don't understand what they want it for. And when you start having a conversation about, well, really what I want to know is the impact of power outages. Okay, well then maybe you don't need the data that Dale's rightfully protecting. You need more stuff that's going to drive you to impacts on other sectors. And that can change the nature of the conversation when people get on the same page with the data that actually answers their question, which may not require the utility to share something that they don't want to share.
yeah. Well, and Chris, this is a great discussion. This should actually be a working group discussion, Carrie, this topic right here. Early on, there was a discussion about, do we want infrastructure data in the SISE, or do we want that behind a company firewall and the SISE just vets people and hand it over to the company for them to let them go somewhere and see the data, but never leaves their firewall? So one is centralized data, one is decentralized data. But anybody remember this conversation? We had this early on, and this is more of a strategy about how the SISE is used. Because the utilities aren't the only one that are nervous about infrastructure getting out there for non-operational purposes, right? How?
Well, and there's been millions of dollars spent. There's a whole Highfield initiative. There's all this other stuff about where infrastructure is. We don't need to reinvent that wheel. What I think practitioners really want is, what does that mean to me? Dominion's having a restoration event. What does that mean to me if I'm a telecom operator, or I'm an emergency management agency, or a public safety agency, or whoever is a member of the SISE? Those are fundamentally different things. And I don't know that conversation is brokered often enough.
Right. But let me ask another question, if I may, Dale. Is there a way? I mean, there's really two questions. One is, why do you need this? What problem are you trying to solve? Right. I think, Chris, you teed that up well. But if somebody does need it, is there a way? Is there a way for a vetted person to look at information of Dominion behind a Dominion protected environment where they can see but can't touch? Does that make sense? Am I saying it right?
Today you've got to be a company employee to do so, or a contracted vendor who has been vetted to be able to see
Right.
that data.
Okay.
So it's not a small conversation. I mean, we
Yeah.
take just in GIS alone 50 to 100 data requests a month,
Right.
and a lot of that is municipalities, individual customers, contractors, just wanting to see where our overhead lines are, where our poles are, where transmission towers are, et cetera, so they can do planning. And we have to work through each of those discussions to give them what they need, but not in a format that discloses our entire infrastructure.
Right.
So this might lead into a lot of the ESF 14 type discussions as well, because that gets into all the sector, the cross-sector, the dependencies, interdependencies of kind of why we need to fill some of those data gaps. And that's, I think, you're just not going to know exactly what you need until you have folks sit down at the table and say, hey, National Risk Management Center, we have this data, but we don't have that data. So how can you fill the gaps so that you're not making some of the assumptions when you come to some analytical type assessment of the problem at the hand, and what data gaps are you missing, so you don't have to make some of those assumptions in your findings. And some of the infrastructure impact reports that they've been developing over a lot of the latest events are of extreme value, and people want more of that. And it's like, and when people come to the conclusion, or we come to a conclusion, people don't understand, well, where's your data source coming from? Why are you making, and we've had some of these issues between headquarters and the regions going out there and trying to validate some of the things that headquarters is recommending, and understanding why, without that knowing, and you're the guy out in the field trying to validate, well, why am I turning right instead of left? Those are very, very helpful. Identifying the data source, the ORL, how we come to those conclusions and making recommendations to go forward. So, I mean, I think once we get into the data sharing part, that's enough justification to say why I need the data.
Yeah.
There's a difference between steady state and then during an actual
actual event. But, you know, even if you have the avenue to actually share that information, that's huge in an actual event.
Yeah.
And, you know, people tend to share more information during an event versus just steady state.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, I
So-
can't share that versus, you know, somebody really pointing down a gun on the, looking down the gun of a barrel saying, hey, give me your information during an actual event, or you're in dire straits and you're just like, hey, I need your help.
Yeah.
Take what you need, you know.
So-
we'll figure it out later.
So this goes back, Dale. This is a topic probably bigger than what we're touching on. But to your point, I think we need to address who are the data users and who are the data providers and what are the use cases. Because the use cases are defining who's going to see what. And I'll tell you what, in all the use cases I've been involved with the electric sector, mutual assistance, power restoration, I've never needed to know anything secretive or infrastructure-wise about the utilities to solve the problems that we've been addressing. The only information I need, so that means most of our utilities are data consumers. The only data that would be nice to have is the states have asked for this. Tom, we'd like to know where the contractor or utility trucks are before they get to our state. So if we have available, we'll have police meet them and escort them. But to date, the only use case that I need utility infrastructure data has been that one that I remember. I don't need, now there may be other use cases that come out of that you all have. But this is an important topic, Dale. I'm glad you brought it up because it's really this is a policy process question as much as it is I don't even know if it's a technology question, but it's definitely policy process. So, Dale, your point is to make. Go ahead, Dave. I want to manage expectations. I think is what Dale I hear you saying. So.
Yeah, I think Dale brings up, you know, the age-old question is, you know, everybody that's in this, and it goes back to that last bullet of session 2. It's less about the data and more about the community and the trust that you built and understanding what each other's needs are. I don't think anybody outside the electric industry wants to be an expert in the electric industry. They just want to know little bits and pieces of it. And when they ask you for something and they don't know how to ask you for it, you take it as, I want everything. So and Chris made the same point. I think the big part is everybody's got data. The public sector has data that I want. I don't know how to ask for it. I might not even know what to ask for. This process allows people to talk to each other, to build that trust, to know, I don't need to know where all of your lines are. I just need to know how this is impacting me. What do I need to do to make my plan? How can I help you with that? And I mean, that's the thing. And from a utility perspective, you want to know how is it impacting you? How is that impacting other sectors? So that you can work together collaboratively to solve the problem. So I think the data solves it, but you can't start with the data. You got to start with the trust and the people and knowing what the problem, defining the problem. So if we're so stuck on you can't figure out a way to share the data, you're never going to solve the problem.
That's right. Okay, and Dale, just to circle back, I hear you. We want to manage their expectation so that they don't come here thinking, oh, I'm going to get all kinds of utility data. If I heard you right. Got it.
Yeah, that's what, respectfully, in light of what was just shared, we had a call and every utility unanimously lined up and said, yeah, there is no intent to have data flowing outside of the utility. And that was unanimous for those that were on that call.
Right.
So I think you say it good, Tom. I think that's what we're trying to do is just manage expectations.
Yes.
So those that do not know anything about the SISE or ORLs don't get a false impression of what's happening.
Yeah. And I think to underscore what Dave just said, you can't move to the data without trust, and you're not going to get trust without a process that works a problem.
Well, Dave said something else that's really important. That's really, really, really true in every type of one of these conversations I've ever been a part of, which is if I'm not an expert in the are all or nothing. You can do all kinds of things to anonymize data, to strip things out of it. And I'll say maybe 5% of the people out there understand that. That if you have a data set, but you have elements of it you don't want shared, those can be pulled right out in real time. So having a real conversation about the malleability of information sharing and understanding really what I need to know is impacts. I know in my time in the EOC, the one thing I want to know is two things. I want to know where the power is out as granularly as possible so I can then go and figure out what that impact of that is, hospitals, daycares, nursing homes, people on oxygen. And then I also want to know priority customers. And for the same reasons. Never did I want to know infrastructure. And the other use case that I heard in the Operations Center is the one that you mentioned, state police escorts of convoys so they can get past the way stations and have their waivers executed. Having those conversations, both sides get better, and maybe we can make some progress in this.
I want to echo what Chris just said. This is Greg. And so many times when we're sitting in the Operations Center, we get like requests for information, even from like FEMA, NRCC, of like just kicking off an event, and they say, "Give me the status of all critical infrastructure in the impacted area." And right there, you just want to smack them silly, because you know how hard it is to get that kind of information in a large-scale type event. And okay, I understand the need, but getting that type of information is just easier said than done. And if you can slowly chip away at some of these things and find ground truth, that's how some of these things are handled. I mean, it's not automated. It's just, again, it goes back to the relationships. The folks you got out in the field, the folks that are hammering the things down at the NRCC at FEMA, all the different elements, and how it just gets very complicated very quickly. And it's peeling back the onion on the complexities of the critical infrastructure and the electric system, and all those things that kind of go into some of the equation and identifying what the problem is, and then what's the solution moving forward. So
Okay.
one last thing I want to say, and I'll get off my soapbox on this. Sorry, Dale, you got me spun up. is the answer, once we understand what people really are asking for, we can solution the answer. And Greg just touched on it. The answer may not be automated. It may be SISE members need to know the answer to this question, and then we need to provide a human process to get them the answer to that question, and then
Yeah.
get it into the situational awareness system. So
Yeah.
it may be that, no, it's a bridge too far to actually share the data in an automated way. And maybe it's somebody makes a phone call to somebody else and fills out a form, and the SISE members get it that way. But we got to know the question
Yeah.
first before we can figure that out.
Great.
Hey, this is Will. Can I
Sure, Will.
let me just, I think what Dale was saying was just for new folks looking to join the site, just making sure their expectation is not that they're going to get all these utilities data, and likewise by joining the site, that the expectation isn't I have to give all of my data to the site.
Great point. And Dale, your point is spot on, by the way. We definitely never want to give that impression, because it's not true. And it's really important that you keep reminding us of that, because we may inadvertently send that message out.
Yeah, I love everybody on the call. I will say that everybody went hyper. It's not an all or nothing. Today, every request is met with an answer, and everybody gets data. But to Will's point, and he articulated a heck of a lot better than I did, it is all about setting the expectations.
Yeah. So I just made a note. When we do our history, we need to tell them in that session what the SISE is and what it's not. Right? And there is where we can build an FAQ. We can actually talk to the process. I think this is a really a great discussion. I'm taking notes as you guys are talking here. Okay, very good. And you know, the other thing too, Chris, this is back to it. What would be great is to have the utilities provide us what are the top 10 questions you get hit with all the time, right? And maybe there's a way that, you know, something like that can be set up so that they don't get those questions. They get, you know, vetted people go here to get that information. I'm just thinking out loud, but maybe there's a way to do that, because the whole thing is to streamline and make things quicker and faster and relieve the burden of these manual. Dale, I had no idea. You had that many data requests. I don't care how many you get, or George, how many you get from government, but I didn't even think about that. That's a lot of work and repetitive, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's why I think the commentary probably the answer is the person that actually gets the request.
Yeah.
But at any rate,
Yeah.
I got to run. It's been a good call. Sorry to stir the pot, but we'll
No,
see
that's
you
all right.
next time.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, Dale. Anybody have any other comments? Next week we'll
Only comment I'd love to maybe on the next call with Dale pick at how many of those people who request that data actually know why they're requesting it or understand why they're requesting it.
Yeah, because somebody asked them.
Or have
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Usually it's because somebody asked them, and then somebody asked them. You know, that kind of right.
Go Greg say, give me this as an infrastructural. Well,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay. Well.
Exactly right. You just want to slap them silly. I'm sorry, but yeah.
All right. So next week, I'd like to finalize this. We got to make outreach to our speakers and facilitators, but I'll finalize this. We'll continue our discussion on the planning, and then we can move into some of the other work items. Okay. So great call. Thank you, everybody. If you're traveling, be safe. This will conclude our 10 o'clock call for the GIS committee. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.